All right, so we are officially getting started today. Welcome everybody to Alcohol Trends, a Lunch and Learn training. We are super excited that there are so many people here. We had wonderful people telling us that they're joining us today, and so happy that that is happening. And my name is Kathy Schwartzoff. I'm one of the mentoring coordinators at Helping Services, and I have been at Helping Services for 25 years. I've been a mentoring coordinator for 23, and I've been a certified prevention specialist for 15. I live outside of town in Decorah, and I have 3 adult children, and I'm happy to say that one of them is on the call today as a mentor for a day. And I think my husband's here too, as I told him yesterday was our anniversary, and his gift to me is to be on here today. So there you are. So that's a bit about me. I'd like to have Dan share a little bit about his background.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I'm Dan Marx, Winneshiek County Sheriff. I've been in my 24th year of law enforcement. About 22 years of that have been with the Sheriff's Office, and the last 6.5 of those years have been as sheriff. I also am married. I have 2 teenage kids. My youngest is going to be a junior in high school. My oldest just graduated this year and is headed off to the United States Air Force in September. I live just outside of Bluffton, northern Winneshiek County. And yeah, that's a little about me.
All right, so Dan and I are going to be in this together, but we're all in this together today, so that's super. So the things that we're going to be talking about today is the why youth mentoring is connected with this particular topic. We're also going to be talking about Iowans' use rates as compared to some national rates. We're also going to focus a bit on youth and how they're using and what they're using. We're going to touch a little bit on the effects of the pandemic, and then also look at laws and statistics. And Dan will be really key in that specific area since that's his forte. And then also too, we'll be talking about what we can do to help in our communities and individuals as well. And then of course take some questions and comments and do a bit of evaluation. So that's where we're headed today. Some things before we get too into things are today we are recording the information that's being learned, and I've already had one person shout out and say, please be sure to get that to me because she couldn't be here today. But everybody that's on the call, if we have your contact information, you will get the PowerPoint and you will get the recording. So if we don't know who you are and you just signed up and you hopped on today, please make sure that we have your email and you can put that in the chat, and we'll be sure to get that information to you. You are welcome to use your video as much as you would like to. Know that if your video is showing that it won't be on the recording. So don't be concerned about that. Just the speakers will be on the recording, and that just kind of protects you. But I also want you to know that we want to see you when you've got information that you want to share, and others might appreciate that too, of knowing that here you are. So use that as you wish. And then muting yourself, we do ask that you mute yourself unless you're sharing, and please feel free to visit with folks as appropriate and ask questions at any time. We've got that slide at the end that says questions, but at any point jump in and ask questions. So we'd love to hear those. And then two, do mute yourself though when you're done asking your question, because that just helps so that there aren't outside noises that could be distracting to someone. And then two, again, we need your contact information so that we can share those resources with you. And you can share that in the chat if you haven't had the opportunity to do that yet. Oh, and the other thing I wanted to say too, for those of you who joined a little bit later, if you've got more than one person that is in the room with you, please be sure you put their information in the chat so that we have everyone's information that's here today, because we have to count for everybody that's here today. So youth mentoring is a perfect fit for a lot of things, and we do wonderful work and serve in Almaquis, Howard, Winneshiek, and Delaware counties with our mentoring at Helping Services. And Colleen, who's my co-pilot today, is going to help visit a little bit with you all about what youth mentoring is and why it fits into this presentation. And before she starts, can I ask you all a question? Can you see the two website addresses on the bottom? Is there anything that's in the way of those?
Only half, but you can see it.
Okay, thank you. Is that better? We hope so. Okay, so Colleen, can you go ahead and share a little bit about youth mentoring and how this youth mentoring fits into talking about this topic quickly?
Yeah, hi.
Students
I don't have the ability to turn on a camera, but can you all hear me?
Yes, there was a little bit of echo, but go ahead.
All right. So I am Colleen, one of the youth mentoring coordinators in Howard, Almaquis, and Winneshiek County. We are in Howard, Winneshiek, Almaquis, and Delaware County. We serve children ages 6 to 16, matching them with adult role models in the area so that they have extra people in their lives and extra support. Part of why this training fits in, one of the goals that our program tries to accomplish is helping youth to increase their ability to say no to alcohol, drugs, tobacco, and other substances. So we are really excited that our very own Kathy gets to do this training for us and teach us all about how we can help the youth that we work with and that are in our community. Thank you all for being here.
Great, thanks, Colleen. And for those of you who are not in the counties that Helping Services Youth Mentoring serves, that second website, iowamentoring.org, find program, you can go to that website and check out what is in your area. And Colleen, if you have the ability to type in that, or Jen, if you can type that website into the chat, that would be great, because that would help folks to know where that's at. So, and before we start with this particular topic, one of our funders is the Iowa Department of Public Health. And we were charged with the idea that when we took funding from them this year, that we want to help kids in Iowa be healthy. And that's part of, like Colleen said, part of our goals. And so we're doing these trainings. We did 8 of them per year. We'll be doing some next year and the following years. And one of the things that I found when preparing for this training was there was a lot of misinformation out there. There was some great information. In fact, one of our sources is on the call today, so I'm really excited about that. But also, it was easy to go down a rabbit hole and be like, oh, this is really interesting. Let's figure that out and have that part of the presentation. And it was hard to get it to an hour. And so we're going to do the best we can with the time that we have. And I just encourage you to learn with gusto, because I created this with gusto, and Dan's a gusto kind of guy too. So we're going to move ahead and go forward. There we go. We went backwards, y'all. We'll go forwards. There we go. From time to time, we're going to do these little fact or fiction kinds of things. I'm going to ask you what you think about a particular bit of information, and I want you to tell me if it's fact or fiction. And you could do that in the chat. You can unmute. Those are the ways that we're going to have you connect with this. So our first either fact or fiction is, it is illegal for those under age 21 to be in a licensed establishment that sells beer, wine, or spirits. What do you all think? And if Colleen or Jen, somebody can share with me what you see, because I can't see it. Is it fact or fiction?
We're getting a lot of fiction, but some said false, but most are saying fiction.
Okay, we've got a smart group here. It is fiction. It is legal for folks to be under age 21 to be in a licensed establishment. However, localities can have ordinances that make it locally illegal. So that's just a kind of word to the wise of be aware of where you're at. And usually there is very good signage for something like that, but just know that that is fictional. So Iowans' youth rates, we're going to just hop into that, and we're going to start off with this quote from a professor, assistant professor at University of Iowa in the College of Public Health, that shares that it's not necessarily that people who drink in Iowa, it's not necessarily that they're drinking. I'll start over. It's not necessarily that there are more people who drink alcohol in Iowa than in other states, but those folks who drink consume larger quantities. And how does that hit all of you? Does that hit you as something that resonates with you, or is that something that's a surprise? So tell me what you're thinking there. Is it a surprise, or do you're all going, yeah, I knew that?
Not surprised, not surprised. I'm pretty surprised. It's not a surprise, but kind of sad. Not surprised, not surprised.
Okay, well,
I think
good.
Iowa would be similar to other states.
Okay, and I definitely, when I saw this, said to myself, I know that's true in Northeast Iowa, but I was a little surprised about the rest of the state, and I love that somebody said it's a little sad. So moving into that, we're going to look more at what we know about Iowans and alcohol use, so that Iowans are consistently above the national average related to binge drinking episodes. So the national rate is 22.6%, and Iowa's rate is 29% for binge drinking. And then there are certainly more harms that are related to excessive drinking, including car crashes, alcohol-impaired driving, alcohol-related deaths, more cases of liver diseases such as cirrhosis, suicide. Those are huge harms that are being experienced by more Iowans. And then alcohol abuse is happening at a rate of 20% for adults. And that's a huge impact on our communities, on our families, on our schools, on our every part of our community, and goes well beyond just that drinker. It goes beyond lots of folks. And then two, $1.9 billion is what excessive drinking costs Iowans per year. And this is information from the Center for Disease Control and Prevention, that that money comes from lost productivity, from healthcare costs, criminal justice, motor vehicle crash costs, and property damage. And if you break that down per drink, $1.59 per drink for every Iowan, and $635 per Iowan is what that costs. And this even includes 40% of the Iowans who have not drank anything in the last 30 days. And then our last point here about Iowans is that we are seeing more deaths. It has doubled in the last decade. And people are dying of those harms that we talked about in the second point. And then this graphic just tells you where Iowa is at related to alcohol consumption by state. And these are 2021 figures. And the darker the blue area is, the more consumption by gallon is. And New Hampshire's rate is 4.76, I believe. Yes. And I was surprised New Hampshire was a state. I would not have guessed that at all. And then Utah is the lowest rate, and that's 1.34. And that one sort of makes sense related to some of the things that happen in Utah. Iowa is at 2.4 gallons, as the slide says, per capita. And the average of all the states is at 2.49. And then this data is, you can't quite see it, maybe perhaps it's a little bit blocked there, that it says that the binge drinking rate among adults in the United States is, this information is from 2018 by state. It has the District of Columbia, which isn't always recognized as a state. Wisconsin is second and Iowa is third. And this isn't a huge shock to us in the prevention field or those who are in the treatment field, because binge drinking is definitely prominent in our state. And the rate of binge drinking and also intensity drinking has been going up for several years, since about 2017. And those who drink more are 70 times more likely to have an alcohol-related emergency department visit. And those who consume 3 times the gender-specific binge thresholds were 93 times more likely to have ED visits. And so it's quite alarming to see that, binge drinking really, we know that it impairs people's decision making, but this really gets it down to where we're at with things. So, okay, then just a second, I'm going to admit somebody into the group. Then we're going to look at how Iowans consume, and this is figures closer to where we are now, 2020, that beer is definitely the alcohol of choice in Iowa, with around 50 million gallons of beer being drank in 2020, with spirits being only about 6 million and wines being around 3 million. And so that beer is definitely the leader in the number of gallons that are drank in our state. So moving on to youth use rates, I want to talk a little bit about a resource that's called the Iowa Youth Survey. It's done every 2 years with 6th, 8th, and 11th graders in our state. And they ask questions about behavior, about attitudes, about community and things like that. And part of the information is related to drug use. And so looking at this information, we have represented to Almaquee, Delaware, Dubuque, Howard, and Winneshiek, and then the state average. And some of you all know that we don't cover Dubuque in our mentoring program, but I always like to honor when people ask things in the pre-registration. Can you give us statistics for Dubuque County? Somebody did that. And so this is your point that you get your little dessert today and have some information for Dubuque when we are talking about youth. So this first question, oh, and the one thing too I wanted to say is there is no 2020 county data. For one thing, I'm not sure if it would be ready yet. But secondly, the powers that be had decided that there was so much going on because this is usually done in the schools, that in 2020, the schools were taxed with enough things that were of a concern that they didn't need to try to have students do the Iowa Youth Survey, because probably data would be skewed, because would we even get all the students' information? So looking at this, the one drink that's on the chart, the actual question that is asked of the 6th, 8th, and 11th graders is, in the past 30 days, have you had at least one drink of alcohol? And these are percentages for those who reported one or more days of use. And one thing to always look at with this type of information is that green bar is the state average. And so you can look at that and say, oh, there are 3 counties that are above the state average and 2 that are below. It's always just a good barometer to kind of be thinking about. And then the 5 or more drinks in the past 30 days, how many days did you have 5 or more drinks of alcohol in a row within a couple hours? And these numbers are the percentage who reported 1 or more days that they did that. And so again, everybody in these counties was either at the state average or above. And then with beer, if you drank in the past 30 days, did you drink beer? And again, everybody's either at that state average or above. And then this one surprised me. If you drank in the past 30 days, did you drink any other alcohol? And quite a few people were either at or above the state average. One was below. And I guess I was under the assumption that most youth choose beer, but the other thing that plays into this is not only are they drinking beer, but also drinking alcohol as well. So it didn't ask about, did you exclusively drink beer or did you exclusively drink alcohol? So interesting information. Oops, we went the wrong way, folks. And then just another thing that was so important in the information that I found is people were really focusing on that youth access is a huge concern. And so looked at the Iowa Youth Survey data, the question that is asked is, in your neighborhood or community, how difficult do you think it would be for a kid your age to get an alcoholic beverage, either beer, wine, or liquor? And again, looking at that state average, and the answers here are the folks who said it's either easy or very easy to get it in my community. Looks like Delaware was below the state average, but everybody else was above it, with Almaquee being pretty high in that particular area. And so this is always something to look at to say, hey, youth access can really be a source of concern. So, and then somebody also asked about our kids trying alcohol at a younger age. And again, this is Iowa Youth Survey information. The top chart is from 2016 and the bottom chart is from 2018. And if I added up kind of the averages of folks who were using between under age 8 and up to age 17 or up, and those who started at that age. In 2016, 29.2% were at that rate. And in 2018, it was 29.8%. So there wasn't a huge difference. However, it's not a great idea to just only take 2 years and say, oh, yes, it's changed significantly. But there are some things that I saw that, and I'm going to ask you in a minute, what do you see, if there's anything that anybody wants to share with those 2016 groups. The 17 and up was pretty much either all at the same rate with the exception of Alameda. Notice the 17 and up in the 2018 section, there's lots of variance in that. The other thing I want to point out is the 13 and 14-year-olds in the 2018 chart. Look at Winneshiek County. They skyrocketed with 13% of the overall 6th, 8th, and 11th graders saying that they started when they were 13 or 14, and that's double the state, pretty much double the state rate. And kind of looking at that a little bit further, the 6th graders, none of them said that they started at 13 or 14, but there isn't that much age difference. The 8th graders, it was 10%, and the 11th graders, 24%, with 14% being male and 30% girls. So kind of makes you wonder if there was a strong peer group that felt like this was okay or that they had a lot of access. Just kind of makes you wonder what was going on during that point. But anything that anybody sees in this or questions that you all have so far that we need to address?
Kathy, we had one comment, just a comment mentioning that alcoholic seltzers are popular now, becoming real.
Great.
Which I've seen that trend as well. That,
awesome.
Like, very fruity seltzer, White Claws, and the Trulies, and those kinds of things are becoming more and more popular.
So that tells us too, when we looked at that last chart of are they using other alcohol, that is very helpful to know. Thank you. Good point. See, we have such a great group that we get lots of good information. So we're going to zip into a fact or fiction. Drinks made of 1.5 ounces of liquor have an equal amount of alcohol in them as a 12-ounce glass of beer or 5-ounce glass of wine. What do you think?
Fact, true, fact. We're seeing a trend here. Everybody thinks this is a fact.
Well, we have such a smart group. That's why. It is certainly a fact. And these are all equal in amount and they are considered a standard drink size. So glad you all knew that. Good deal. Then we're going to look just really quickly at craft beer. You can see from this chart that from 2010 up to 2020 isn't on the chart, but it certainly went up every year. And if we factor in the 2019 at 13.6% of the market share, that seems to be where it peaked, and it dropped a little bit in 2020. And there was certainly a change there, but if we think about the world in 2020 where folks weren't out and about like they are right now, that certainly had an impact on it. And there were even some tap rooms that had to close. Small breweries had some challenges. Some folks went into to-go type of things, went into shipping things. It just became a challenge, just like any business had to have a challenge related to COVID. And so there certainly is a lot of craft beer sales happening, but it is kind of good to know that that was a trend in 2020, that it went down just a little bit. And then some things related to the pandemic. We are going to attempt here to watch a video, and this is the point where I am going to stop sharing, and then I will try to share what I need. And we have to wait for this to load just a second. And then can you all see that there's like a black big part of the screen right here?
Yes.
Okay. And we're waiting for that to get ready.
The pandemic has brought to light some disturbing trends in Iowa on alcohol consumption and abuse. KCRG TV9's Taylor Holt was there as lawmakers, health experts, and students talked about these concerns.
And can you hear that, y'all?
And what needs to change. Taylor?
Yep, we can.
Instances of excessive alcohol use and underage drinking have risen to significant levels during the pandemic, but experts today also agreed these issues were present way before the shutdowns and the isolation, and say real solutions need to be implemented before it's too late.
A lot of, especially in Iowa, game day, all that's kind of often is geared around beer or alcohol use.
Ariane Redding is a Wartburg College student studying public health. On campus, she sees the impacts of alcohol use and alcohol abuse in young people.
I also have noticed that there is an increase in students, even students that don't usually consume alcohol, that this is where they're at now because they don't know what else to do with life. They're stressed.
It's not an isolated issue. Dr. Paul Gilbert says numbers are trending upwards throughout the state, especially with the COVID-19 pandemic.
Iowans are consistently above the national average in terms of binge drinking episodes. And with more drinking, we are poised to see more harms related to it. Car crashes, lost work time.
He was one of a group of health experts, lawmakers, and others discussing the alcohol crisis in Iowa and the impacts emerging, including more cases of liver disease and alcohol-related deaths. One lawmaker says alcohol policies need to be addressed, specifically surrounding access.
The state of Iowa is passing more and more what I would call alcohol permissive bills, and not, on the other hand, investing in treatment, education, or public health infrastructure here. There's to go drive up liquor, basically, in our restaurants now.
Celsi supports putting some of the state's COVID-19 money towards treatment and says raising liquor taxes for education and prevention is also an idea.
Really not allowing additional access to alcohol through delivery would be really nice, not to add that.
For Redding, as a student herself, the issue comes down to more resources and education on campuses.
Can campuses learn from prevention experts as to how to help their students cope in a better way?
Gilbert says although 20% of adult Iowans are abusing alcohol, the impacts are far-reaching and stretch beyond just the drinker, but to family, friends, coworkers, and others in their circle, and can have lifelong impacts if not addressed. In the studio, Taylor Holt, KCRG TV9 News.
Okay, so I'm going to stop sharing and get that out of our way and get back into our PowerPoint. I hope Kaylee from ASAC enjoyed seeing her workplace featured on that. And here we go back to the PowerPoint. And need to get it back to our slides. So this is talking a little bit about the effects of the pandemic. And there we go. Can you all see that again?
Yeah, but it's kind of blurry for some reason.
I don't know what to do about that. Maybe it's just this slide. I don't know.
Could just be my screen too.
Okay, well, we'll move on. And if it continues to be that you need to feel like you're getting your eyes checked, let me know. And maybe I can try something. So as the student.
It is a little blurry.
Okay. Why don't I see here really quick if I can stop sharing and see if.
Kathy, Renee says it could be the internet connection and you may need to refresh.
That makes me nervous. I tried something else. Let's see if this is any better.
Yes, it's not blurry anymore.
Yay! So, okay, I learned something in that process. That was good. All right, so we're good to go? All right, super. Okay, so as a student from Wartburg said, I found it extremely alarming that college students didn't know what else to do. But looking at what college life is usually like, there's lots of activities that people can get into and that kind of stuff, and those things weren't happening. So that isn't really truly surprising. So we've got a charge there to give ourselves some opportunities for helping young people, whether they're in college or not, know good coping skills. And certainly liquor sales were up 8.2%, went from 339 million to 367 million statewide in 2020. And some access issues. Some folks really did stock up on their alcohol when the shutdown happened originally and thought, I have to make sure that I have what I need. But then things opened up and there was to-go products available, which both certainly had effects on people's drinking. Very quickly, Iowa laws. I'm going to pass on doing the poll because it takes a little bit longer to do. And we've had a few technical challenges already. So I'm just going to outright ask y'all, what do you think the minimum age for serving alcohol is on premises? So somebody that is in a restaurant, they're going to consume it.
21,
while they're
18,
there.
18, 16, 21, 16, 18, 18. So we're getting 21, 18, 16, 16 off premises, 21 on premises.
Interesting. Okay. And here's what I'm going to share with you. On premises is 18 and off premises is 16. So,
Okay.
and I've certainly seen where there have been situations where a family-run business, they're serving even younger, and that is a concern to me. Was there some thoughts to share, Colleen?
Yeah, so Chris said that they can serve if someone over 21 pours it. And then a comment was also made by Heather that in Wisconsin with a parent, you only have to be 15.
Oh, I'm not aware of Wisconsin things. That's interesting. All right.
Yeah.
And I did see that about 21-year-olds helping with serving or with pouring as well. So thanks, Chris, for sharing that. And kind of gets, whoops, I'm sorry.
Kids will go with their parents to the bars in like Platteville and stuff like that, and they only have to be 15 as long as their parents are there.
Wow. That's a concern.
Yeah, because I feel like a lot of parents do it just to be like their friend's kid or their kid's friend, and like obviously that's not a good way to do it. Yeah,
right. Yes. And some more things related to the law. In 2020, House File number 2540 was passed, and there were 3 different divisions related to that. The first one was related to that charities can have ticket sales for beer, spirits, and wine events. So that was something new. And then Division 2 was that retailers could sell wine or native wines for off-premises consumption to fill growlers. And then number 3, or Division 3, was that Class C liquor licensees could sell liquor, wine, and mixed drinks for off-premises. And this is that to-go type. Division 2 and Division 3 were definitely to-go types of things, with Division 3 having quite a few additional criteria that people had to follow the letter of the law to make sure that it was sealed and to make sure that it was as safe as they can make it as the retailer selling it. So, and there were some additional things related to that, but in the interest of time, we're going to zip ahead unless there was a comment that would be shared. Okay. So related to alcohol testing in Iowa, drinking laws do, drivers should submit to alcohol testing if requested by police. They do have the constitutional right to refuse, but the penalty is that their license is revoked for 1 year. And if they are using any kind of alcohol or impaired in any way, their license is revoked for 180 days. And then also if there's personal injury to anyone, there are other things that come into play there. And then one thing I wanted to just touch on was boating in Iowa is so prevalent this time of year, and folks need to be aware of that. The 0.08 is the same if you're operating a boat. And some things to be aware of as well is that open containers are allowed, so the passenger and the driver can have an open container. But really, really keep in mind that the elements enhance your impairment. So when you normally may drink a beer within an hour and you're on a boat, that can be different than when you're sitting in the bar or sitting at your home, because you've got the waves, you've got the sun, you've got all the wind blowing in your face and all that kind of stuff. You've got a lot of things that can be more disorienting. So really, really keep that in mind. You also might want to think about, even though you can have an open container, you also can think about, should I have a designated operator that can operate safely? So just like you would in your car. And then canoers, tubers, kayakers, other folks who are on the waterways, even though they're not in a motorized vehicle, they certainly can be charged with public intoxication as well. And then over the 4th of July, there is an Operation Dry Water campaign that is happening. So enforcement will be heightened at that time. And it's something that the Department of Natural Resources really wants folks to be safe and take good measures to be safe on our waterways, because they want everybody to be enjoying that time. So this is the point where we're going to turn some things over to Dan and let him talk a little bit about laws and local statistics. Dan, take it away.
Yeah, thank you, Kathy. I appreciate it. And yeah, to just kind of go back on a few of the slides that you talked about as far as people binge drinking and things like that. That's definitely something that we've seen coming into our jail more often. I would say the amount of people coming in for alcohol related, which what I'm about to say, I think plays right into the statistics that you showed and would be consistent with that. The amount of people that we see coming into our jail during a given weekend or a given week or year for that matter is probably down from what it's ever been. But the amount of people that are coming in who are under the influence of alcohol, their levels are significantly higher. Now, obviously, I'm painting that with a wide brush. That's not consistent, but we're seeing it as a general trend to a point where we've had to implement additional policies in our jail where I won't allow an inmate to be booked into our jail if they are over a 0.02 or a 0.2, excuse me, a 0.2 without first getting a medical clearance. So whoever the arresting agent, all agencies come to our jail if they're arrested in Winneshiek County. So whether it's whatever agency arrests them, we then require, if they're PBTing, which is a preliminary breath test, not the official one that's admissible in court, but the preliminary breath test. If they're PBTing over a 0.2, we require them to go to the ER and get a medical clearance ahead of time. Obviously, we have to ensure the safety and security and have to be attentive to the needs of our inmates. So that is definitely something we are seeing more of. Major thing that we see in Winneshiek County, and I just as reality, the dynamics of Winneshiek County with you take the breweries and the specialty drinks, specialty beer, craft beer, along with we have a cider shop now moving into our county. We've had a long-term winery already in the county. We're kind of getting to be known as kind of the beer capital of the Midwest, and there's other things tacking onto that. Some ways that's been good. It's been good for tourism. We're bringing a lot of people into the county, but obviously there's fallout, and with any good thing, there's bad things. And of all the things you just outlined, bringing that many alcohol establishments into the county, naturally there's going to be fallout from that. In addition to that, especially during this past year with the pandemic, we saw a huge influx of people to our county, especially to the upper Iowa River. It was something they could do outdoors, they could be distanced. We saw thousands more people come to our county, and a slide or two ago, you touched on that. And the amount of fallout that comes from that as far as problems on the river. What does that have to do with alcohol? Well, a lot of the problems we have on the river with people needing a rescue, getting in trouble, getting caught in log jams, capsizing, getting lost, getting hurt, getting in accidents, getting on or off the river, you name it, the overwhelming majority of those particular situations are alcohol related. Not to say that we don't have some that aren't, because we do, but the overwhelming majority of those situations are alcohol related. So just as an overview of some of the trends we're seeing this past year, actually, with the amount of people on the river, our river rescues are down. If you go prior to that, they were through the roof, higher than they've ever been. Our fire departments needed to get increased equipment and stuff to deal with that. Another trend that we're seeing in Winneshiek County is with craft beer and this sort of things we've been seeing. The drinking, the times of the day when people are drinking, and if you combine that with the river, have shifted significantly from if you go back 15, 20 years ago, to where it would be always late, late at night is when we'd see our biggest crowds in the bars. Winneshiek County has shifted more to a trend of day drinkers, to be honest. We have 4 craft beer establishments in Winneshiek County, and like I said, and we have a winery and things like that, and we have nearly 20 establishments throughout the county. It's right around 20, might even be more than that, that serve alcohol. And we've seen a major shift to the times of the day when we're seeing drinking occurring to be much earlier. It's not uncommon when there's a new release or a new brew that's come out at one of the local breweries. It can be 6 o'clock in the morning and people are already standing in line waiting for their beer, waiting for it to open. Now they're not necessarily drinking yet, but they're waiting for that release, which has just shifted our attention to be more of a daytime effort. Not that we've let up on nighttime efforts, but it's been an addition too. We have seen, and I have some statistics here, over the last few years, we have seen a steady decrease in what we're seeing from an enforcement standpoint, from frankly, people getting arrested. And that's looking at OWIs, public intoxications, and underage drinking. But the underage drinking, there's kind of an asterisk by that one. There's a few other factors there, so I don't want to dwell on that one too much, but OWIs and public intoxications. Yet, I think it's clear drinking in Winneshiek County has spiked significantly. So there's a few factors that you can, make an educated guess as to what might be leading to that. One of them is, I think, with the type of drinking that's going on, it's not going out to the bar and, in that type of setting. It's more of an event, maybe with the family. It's more of a planned event. We're seeing just a different type of crowd and maybe a different type of atmosphere. And I think one thing that's been very positive, largely thanks to the work and advocacy of a lot of the people on this meeting, that people are making better plans and having designated drivers and things like that. Obviously, when it comes to our statistics, I'm always careful to use our statistics as that tells the whole story, because we only know what we know. We don't know the things that get past us. So that's not to say it's not happening just because we're not necessarily seeing the statistics, because I think by all reasonable calculations, drinking has gone up. We're just seeing the enforcement side. When I say the enforcement side, the things that we're getting involved with going down. When it comes to, yeah.
Sorry to cut you off. We have a question in the comments. They're wondering if the decreases that you're talking about are just happening in Winneshiek County or if they're happening across the rest of the state.
That's a good question. And frankly, I don't know the answer to it. I apologize. I only have Winneshiek County statistics, and I don't want to take a stab at something that I don't know the answer to. So I apologize that I'm ignorant on that question. As far as, where was I going with that? As far as underage drinking, you know, with social media, with all the things of this past year, yes, our underage drinking numbers have dropped significantly from what we're getting called to. But again, I think we want to be careful to then make the assumption that underage drinking has gone down. I would doubt it has. I think it's a combination of a pandemic, social media being used more strategically by kids. For a while when social media first came out, there's a beer party, kids would put it out everywhere, and of course cops would get called. I think they're being a little more careful in how they're messaging that stuff now, so they're not getting called in as much as they used to. Yeah, and I guess that's kind of the major trends, I guess, that we have been seeing here. If there was something else I wanted to add, but I can't remember what it was. I'm drawing a blank on it now. So.
Well, and if you think of it, Dan, as we're doing things, just jump right in. We've got just a little bit of time left here. Thank you. Some things to kind of keep in mind is what can you do in the community? And as that lawmaker said, they need to be educated if it's the city, the county, those folks in Des Moines or Washington, D.C. Let them know what you're learning and seeing and hearing about. Advocate for that idea of healthy coping skills. Join a substance abuse prevention coalition. And for those of you who are in Northeast Iowa, we sent you some of that information as you pre-registered. But if you're curious to know who is in your county and you don't know that, put that in the chat as well. And they would have that information about what is going on in the county that you live in. And so that would be a good resource for you all.
And Kathy, if I can jump in here, I think I remember, especially with the slide where I was going. I do think, and what I was starting to say is, I'm sure in you guys' profession is very similar to mine. You only hear from people when they're upset. They never call you to tell you you're doing a good job. You only hear from them when they are upset by something, or when they want to complain about something, or when they feel something's going bad. I think the field of advocacy and everything that helping services and other groups have been doing has been has had a significant level of success. As I said, I'm not trying to bury my head in the sand and assert that drinking's gone away, or that it has even dropped, because I don't think it has. I think people are doing it smarter and they're doing it safer. And I do think that's probably a good thing that craft beer is brought in as well. It brings in a safer approach to it. So I know there's a lot of people on this forum and that probably only hear negative things in which you should do this and should do that. I would say, keep doing what you're doing. Don't take your foot off the gas. We never want to get complacent. And even though numbers from an enforcement standpoint, again, that doesn't tell the story. From an enforcement standpoint, have been trending in the right direction. That doesn't mean they're good. We still saw all those graphs, and Winneshiek County was low on some things, but it was stuck out as high in others. So I don't think we want to get a false sense of security here in what's going on.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Great. I'm glad you remembered what you were thinking of, Dan. So good. Just some key things too to look at related to prevention with youth. There's lots of great ideas of things that you can do. Increase alcohol taxes is a concept, regulate alcohol stores, and enforce the law, look at implementing commercial host laws, reduce exposure to advertising, look at community partnerships and how do we all work together to help youth related to their use or their abuse. Monitor excessive drinking, and we all can do that as parents and community members. And then too, to use evidence-based strategies to help in that process as well. And certainly those prevention coalitions are a group that can help with lots of this prevention. Some ways that we can help each other and individuals that we care about is to hop on Your Life Iowa. It is a website, but also has, you have the ability to chat on there. You can email them, you can text them to just get information or to get ideas from looking at your own use or looking at someone else if you're concerned about them, to get ways to talk to someone as well, which is the next thing. Please have conversations with those that you care about, not just one conversation, but come from that sense of I care about you and here we need to talk about this, I'm concerned. And then to look at the mental health resources and treatment centers, explore them as you need them. There is a locator option on Your Life Iowa so that if you don't know the local entity that does mental health and treatment and even prevention, you can find that on the Your Life Iowa website. And then to celebrate and model healthy coping skills. And I'm a big promoter of that you can have celebrations without alcohol and have fun. And I even remember the next day really well. So, really quickly, some of you ask, how can I talk to youth about this important topic? And this is just a simple framework that's been brought up before in some of our trainings to just keep it simple. Identifying emotion is a good way to get more into it. Talk about how you're feeling or focus more on how the youth might be feeling. Reiterate a truth that you want them to be sure to know about. And that's kind of the thing that you really want them to hear, that message of here's something that I want you to know. And this one gives the example of, I'm afraid that alcohol's harms will get in the way of your dreams. And then follow up by asking, what can I do to support you? And end with, when you want to talk, I'm here for you. And this model even works with adults. And again, you will be getting this in the PowerPoint when we send that to you, and you'll be able to hear it talked a little bit about again in the recording as well. So one really quick fact or fiction: employees of alcohol license holders can give away wine, beer, liquor, any kind of drinks to someone under the legal age of drinking because there was no sale. So there's no sanctions that are in place. What do you think?
Fiction, 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 fiction.
You guys are so smart. There you go. And certainly, no one should be giving away any kind of alcohol. Supplying it, giving it to anyone does affect, sanctions do go into place for those who do that. So I made it easy for you all today to get those fact and fiction correctly. Some upcoming trainings that we're hoping to do in the next year are looking at vaping, looking again at those resources that are available at Your Life Iowa because they're always changing. Pros and cons of legalizing marijuana, looking at binge drinking, looking at a prevention model, the QPR suicide prevention model. Personal pronouns, how can we use them correctly and respectfully? And youth mental health. Those are our topics that we're hoping to cover next year, and those will be done via Zoom or other ways. Before you hop off, because it's getting to be about that time, please do your evaluation. Colleen or Jen, if you can put that in the chat so that everybody has access to that. There are 4 questions, so it will not take you long. We really want to hear back what you enjoyed about today and how your learning increased. And 2, if you are in need of CEUs for the Iowa Board of Certification, I have to have your correct name. So email me at kathy.s@helpingservices.org. And you should have, if you pre-registered, got several emails from me. So you should have that, but please make sure you get that. And lastly, before you're thinking about, is there any questions that you all have? I encourage you all to be a mentor or support your local mentoring program. So are there any information that people are sharing that we want to talk about or questions that folks have? Well, thank you everybody for your time. You guys rocked the fact or fiction information. And I will be getting you that link for the evaluation. And we really appreciate you being on today. And have a great rest of your day.
Thank you, Kathy.
Yep, thanks, Dan.